right, guys, welcome to the show. This is the Real Estate Jock, aka DJ Santiago, speaking to the world today in episode 1. I'm so excited today. I've been talking about doing a real estate podcast for a while. Real estate, for those of you who followed me or been on my website, realestatejock.com, you can find there my story. And I'll get into that really, really quickly. And then I'll move into why I'm talking to you guys today. I kind of got into real estate by force of just being really dealt a bad deck of cards. I was interested in selling my home. I had a situation where I was moving across the country, moving from beautiful Cleveland, Ohio, down to Orlando, Florida. I had an opportunity to relocate there and essentially start a new life there. Nothing was really wrong in Cleveland. Just I wanted to check out the weather, and I had 5 beautiful years there, so I don't have a whole lot to complain about. And the weather was fantastic. But getting back to what happened, so when I moved out of there, when I moved out of my house, I realized very, very quickly by just doing a search on what my house was worth. Now mind you, I never once really followed the real estate market. The reason that's the case, I pretty much focused on my business, and my business every day was, baseball. I'm a former baseball player, former professional athlete, and I ran a chain of successful academies all throughout Ohio. So that was really my focus. My wife was a doctor, physical therapy, and I just never really got into following the real estate market. And some of the best years we ever had as a business was 2007, 2008, 2009, when everybody was talking about a recession and talking about the real estate market. So I just thought everybody was crazy. But when I decided to move in 2012, I realized really quickly that there was a crash and there was an issue. I had a condo in a good area, developing area, but we were really about $40,000 if you included real estate, costs with realtors and closing costs and things of that nature, upside down, which was very, very scary to think about. So, I thought right away, what are some of my options? I can rent it out. Okay, so, our mortgage payment was about $1,000 a month plus some HOA fees. I listed it for sale, and I also listed it for rent. And obviously the price I needed to not bring money to the table was just too high at that time. But I got renters right away. So right away, jump in there, got renters. The first person was a great person. She was there for a year, relocated to Cleveland because of a death of a family member. And basically after about a year, she went ahead and got her own place and was great. She was great. She paid her rent on time, did everything else. And I got a notice in the mail while she was moving out. I was just going to relist it as a rental, that we were actually not allowed to list the house for sale, list the house for rent, which was totally unbeknownst to me. I asked for the real estate company to send me a copy of their bylaws. That was about 78 pages of jargon that I didn't really want to read, but I got the gist of it. In the middle of all this, a major family tragedy happened, that I won't get into on this call. Let's just say it was pretty life-changing. My wife had some issues, and so here I am. I'm pulling my hair out of my head. I'm having this tough time personally. Now, I've got this property. It's upside down. And so I applied for a hardship. The board was kind enough to give me a 24-month hardship and basically said, look, you can rent this out one more time. You weren't supposed to do it the first time. You weren't approved, but we understand your family situation and the fact that you guys are in crisis. And because of that, we're going to give you a one-time opportunity to rent your house out for 24 months until you can get back on your feet. So thank God that happened. That was I've always looked at that house as a learning opportunity. And, I guess my first bit of advice on my first show that I would give you guys is, if you're in a situation where an HOA or somebody is telling you, just giving you policy and telling you can't do something, understand there's a human element there, and they have boards and people that are more than willing to potentially look at your situation a little bit differently than what their policies are. But anyway, so they let me rent the place. I found a renter to agree to a 24-month lease, which was great. Again, same rental rate. I was losing about, I don't know, maybe $100, $150 a month, maybe a little bit more than that. But I got a portion, a healthy, let's say 90% of what I needed to continue making my mortgage payment taken care of every month. Then in about month 20, 21, I started noticing that the rent checks were coming in later and later. And for some strange reason, I just had a gut feeling that something was going on. And so I called up a family friend and said, hey, listen, can you go by the property and just check on things and just make sure things are okay? And, about 2 or 3 weeks go by and we just can't get a hold of anybody. We're knocking on the door. I reach out to a friend of mine who's a real estate investor and said, hey, what can I do here? I gotta find out. Maybe somebody's dead at the property. I don't know. But I haven't gotten this month's rent, and now I'm concerned, and I'm not hearing back from these people. And so long story short, I served the guy with a notice that I'm coming to enter. I actually gave authority to a family friend because, again, I'm down in Orlando. I've got things going on. I'm running a business and dealing with my personal issues. And somebody goes in the property and they basically called me and said, DJ, you won't believe what we found. And I said, well, what did you find? And they said, well, there is garbage up to the top of the garage in the garage. There's papers everywhere. There's clothes everywhere. Essentially, it became a storage facility for someone. To this day, we don't know who it is. And nobody's living here right now. And so somehow, some way, I was able to get a hold of the tenant and, tell him that he needed to get his things out of there. Now, at this point, we're about month 23 of his lease. And he's paid every month. It was just later and later. But now that he's made my house basically a pigsty, it was a problem. So I had to get him out of the house. So I got him out of the house. He actually did take everything out, which would have cost me a lot of money to just get everything he had in there out. He actually came and got his stuff. He gave me a bunch of excuses, lost his job, wife left him, whatever. I mean, I don't know what his issue was, but bottom line is he was going through his own trials and tribulations. And, I just remember looking at a shell of a house. There was some damage, repairs. And so now I'm like, okay, well, I can't rent it out anymore. I just had a really bad experience as an involuntary landlord. I got to sell this thing. And I wasn't 50 grand underwater, but I was about 20 grand underwater. So I couldn't really sell it at full market value, which I knew. So I did what everybody does in these situations. I said, look, I got to get this thing off my hands. I called up a realtor and basically, did a real quick interview. I didn't have much time. I had to fly up to Cleveland and just make sure that the construction that I had to do and the repainting and just the kind of refurb that I needed to do was being done. That was a headache because I was out of town as well. That was supposed to be done in 2 weeks. That took a month. The job that was done was not very good because I wasn't in town. And so long story short, I ended up hiring one realtor that I interviewed. Came well recommended by some people that I respected. And she simply said, well, what do you want to list it for? And I said, well, how about we list it for this? Because I think this kind of gets us to the point that, we can break even. And she said, okay. And she wrote up the contract, got the listing. And I'm noticing that, we're getting a lot of people coming into the condo, and a lot of people, because again, it's a great area, guys. This is a great area. And I end up noticing that I'm not really getting any offers. I'm getting 14, 15, 16 people coming in a high demand area, not getting any offers. So I just simply did my own research and ended up finding out that our listing price was about $10,000 to $15,000 over where it should have been listed. So I had to bring it down. And then all of a sudden we started getting some offers. And then we finally got an offer that we accepted. And then we really ended up finding out how terrible my real estate agent was. She was very much so just interested in getting the listing. Everything that the buyer wanted, she just simply agreed to. She did no pushback. She was calling me every 5 minutes about, the closing date. They want to push this up. They want to push this back. They want you to fix a $5, situation in the garage, et cetera, et cetera. And, I ended up having a blowout with her, basically telling her that, now that the house is in escrow, I will be dealing with the title company because obviously you are not representing me in this situation. She was horrible, terrible, terrible, terrible. And long story short, we ended up selling on the property. You had your $3,500, closing costs, which is pretty standard. We had the realtor fees, my rehab cost, my carrying cost. It cost my family about $40,000 to sell this home. When you feel that pressure, when you have to write that big of a check, unfortunately for us, we were in a position to gather that type of money, so that, we could liquidate the house. We had to really reevaluate. I had to really reevaluate my knowledge of probably the most complicated and most expensive purchase that I'm going to continuously make, which is land, real estate, property. So that being said, I became determined to learn the real estate game. And that's how I became an investor. Before I get into that, just real quick, I know some people might be thinking out there, why in the world would you write a $40,000 check to sell a property? And I'm an entrepreneur. I have been for 15 years. And being an entrepreneur really starts with having some credit, establishing good credit. I have corporate credit that I have to maintain. And credit is everything. You're gonna need good credit, even to do a business deal. So those of you out there listening that are entrepreneurs and think that you can have bad credit, and perhaps you're going to go into a fundraising situation where you have to raise capital, or even just do a simple partnership deal, don't be surprised if that partner doesn't run your credit, just to see, hey, if I put $50,000 in your account, are you responsible with money? So it's very important to me. Number one, to do that because I want to protect my credit. Number two, I'm a person that does what he says he's going to do. And I understand that, banks really don't care about people. We can talk about that at a different time. But the bottom line is I made a commitment and I want to try to fulfill that as best I could. Fortunately for me, I was in a position that we could gather those type of funds. But going back to, the issue, I realized that I didn't know anything about rentals. I didn't know anything about, purchase and sale agreements. I didn't know anything about good realtors versus bad realtors. I thought all realtors were good and they had to get a license and they knew what was going on. And they were going to operate in my favor if it was my client or my realtor. So I had literally in one house, and the reason I say it was a huge learning opportunity was I had every experience you could possibly have, being upside down, not knowing anything about rentals, dealing with bad realtors, dealing with banks that were non-negotiable. I mean, just the list goes on and on and on. So I decided at that time to go ahead and get my real estate license in the state of Florida. I went ahead, did that, passed, and became a realtor. And I've done, a majority of my, intelligence gathering has been on the investment side, because for me, I wanted to get in the game and get my $40,000 back and then some. Being the athlete that I am, being a competitor, I didn't want to get the best. I didn't want real estate to get the best of me. It was an indication that I had to learn something. And so, I've really dedicated the last, let's call it 16, 17 months on just learning different strategies, understanding that there are several ways to buy a home and there are several ways to sell a home. And I'm blown away by how massive the industry is and how massive the potential of real estate is. In a really quick time frame, guys, you can go from zero to a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot of transactions, a lot of sales, a lot of investing, a lot of control, a lot of properties. There's just a lot of things that can happen very quickly in real estate. And real estate, to me, was always a building business, right? I mean, you look at a structure, and like that's real estate. I'm sure most of you listening to this, the first time you heard about real estate or even looked at real estate, you're like, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be this, you have to be that. And essentially, it's not really about the land or the property. It's all a contract business. And so it does help to have a legal background. If you have a legal background, or you definitely want to have that as a part of your team, because it is about pieces of paper. But in subsequent shows, you guys will hear me describe things where you can control a $10 million piece of property with a piece of paper. And when you hear this stuff about no money down, little to no cash, those are some of the strategies that we'll discuss on a different podcast. The focus of today's podcast is, 3 really creative ways to find out if real estate investing is right for you. I don't think if I ask 10 people walking across the street, would they be interested in getting in real estate either now or at some point? I would say 9 or 8 of those 10 people would say yes, if not all 10. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, 8 of the 10 would definitely want to do that. And so because of that, I always feel like it's something people are interested in. They're just scared by what they don't know. They don't know what they don't know, right? And what I've really kind of found out about real estate is it has less to do about what you know and more to do with the grind, the work that has to be done. One of the things you're going to hear consistently on this podcast is about the work. You have to do the work. The gurus, it's a huge guru market out there in real estate today. And what people are discussing, what people are talking about is, a situation where you become a real estate investor and all of a sudden you're on some beach and you're sipping Mai Tais, doing deals from your laptop, et cetera, et cetera. Now, are there guys out there and gals out there doing that? Absolutely. Again, it's a contract business. It's not about picking up hammers if you don't want it to be. It's not about you being construction guys or gals. You can do that if you want to do that. And I know on HGTV and other subsequent channels, there are a lot of people out there talking about that kind of stuff. But the thing that, you have to understand is that you're going to have to do some heavy lifting. And I don't care what business it is. I don't care if you're trying to sell number 2 pencils. There's going to be some work. And how I know that, and how I think most of you will come upon that same realization, is the fact that when we all watch shows like Shark Tank, right? I mean, Shark Tank is a show that most real estate investors, if not people who are entrepreneurs, watch. It's just a good, cool show. Some of you may not like everybody that's on there, but it's a cool show to learn about business. Have you ever heard of any of these people who are billionaires? Somebody like a Mark Cuban. Do you think he's sitting around on a beach having Mai Tais? This guy's got a net worth billions, and he's working his butt off. I would say, if I had to guess, I would say most of the people on that show probably sleep less than 5 hours a day, because with success comes more opportunity, comes bigger problems. So don't believe the hype will be my first question. Is just, do not do that. But, as long as you're committed to doing the work or surrounding yourself with a team of people to help you with the work, it can be done. It's not hard. Take it from me. I'm a jock. I'm not some MBA Harvard guy at all. And I'm doing deals, and I'm out there promoting myself, and I'm out there executing on a daily basis. So don't believe that you have to have an MBA. Now, the first thing I'm going to just go ahead and jump into are just some questions to ask yourself if you're really looking at real estate investing as being an opportunity for yourself. Number 1, are you ready to fail? Can you handle failure? Plain and simple. You're going to send out offers. If you're going to be an investor, okay, you're going to make offers pretty much every single day they get turned down. And I think that the stat out there is, 90% of the offers you make on a daily basis, which you should be making daily offers, and we'll talk about how to structure your day at a different point. But the way you do this and succeed, first question is, are you willing to hear no? No, we don't like your offer. No, that's not acceptable. And that's how you know that. And that's if you're doing it right. If you're doing it wrong, then a lot of your offers are going to be accepted because you're buying things at market value. And it's no more complicated, guys, than you buy low and sell high. That's basically, what you can do in real estate. And if you're not the one, when we talk about other terms like assignment of contract and wholesaling and all this other stuff, lease purchase, you still have to have for an end buyer of whoever your end buyer is, whether it's you or a different party you're going to sign your deal to make a fee. You got to have room in the deal, right? If you have a deal that doesn't have any equity, there's no room in there, then you generally are acting like a retail seller, which is called a realtor. And this is not the realtor show. This is a real estate investment show. So again, it's just something you need to definitely conquer. Can I handle failure? Can I handle rejection? Can I handle people hanging up on me and saying, no, I'm not interested in that strategy. I just want to get a check and move on from a bank. I don't want to do anything creative. I don't want to do anything that's below market. And I will tell you, before we even move on, most sellers are just like I was. If you listen to the beginning of this podcast, we want our price. We think the house is worth X, Y, and Z. We're not educated on what the hell's going on in the marketplace. So I have no idea. When I talk to sellers every day, what they usually tell me is, well, the house across the street sold for this, this, and this. And it's like, the house looks nothing like yours. They have an updated kitchen. They put about 10 or 15 grand in the place. That's why it's worth that. Your property is not in that type of condition. They don't want to hear that. They just know that, what the one common thing that people do know about real estate is they compare their homes to the ones around it. When we all know that that's not the way you evaluate property. The second thing is, I always say this, and now are there exceptions to this rule? Look, when I became a realtor, I did my first deal inside of 45 days. Or actually, I think it was inside of 30 days. I had a contract that was accepted. So it's not something that is common, but I tell everybody who gets involved, give yourself 90 days. Give yourself 90 days to not make a single dime and just dedicate it to education. Education. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make bad offers. You're going to say the wrong thing to an investor. You're going to say the wrong thing to a seller. Give yourself 90 days of just, I'm going to go in there and get reps on reps on reps and fail and fail and fail and probably not make any money. Now, there are a lot of people, I'm a big believer in visualization. I'm a big believer in, ask and you shall receive and all those things. But I think when it comes to real estate, you got to give yourself 90 days. Why? Is it possible to put together a real estate deal in 7 days? Absolutely. And you'll see advertisements out there. I'm closing on properties in 7 days. And again, I'm talking about the average here. It's definitely possible, but usually the newbies are not the ones doing that. And if you just do your standardized deal, it usually takes 30 days. So if I get a property today under contract, and I'm going to actually go to closing on that contract, it's usually going to take 30 days for that to happen. So, that's why I say give yourself 90 days, because unless you're getting a deal and you're able to talk a seller or talk a motivated person or find a lead, convert that lead in the first week, generally speaking, that's probably not going to happen because you're not going to be as good as you are at the end of those 90 days. But the bottom line is, once you get that contract in place, there's inspections, there's just a lot of different moving parts to actually close and have title change and all that kind of stuff in a property. So, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not hey, I met you today, let's do a deal tomorrow, let me get cash in the bank. Now, what I will say is once you get under contract, you don't really have to do a whole lot. Besides the general stuff, and depending on what type of deal you're doing, a lot of the work, whether you're a realtor or an investor, kind of just, it all kind of plays itself out. And the title companies are great. If you have a good title company, great at kind of keeping both sides accountable to the things that you need to do. So that's where you hear that there's a lot of return on your time investment. It's not like every day you have to go to that house, or every day you need to talk to that seller, every day. No, we're going to set up a deal in X amount of days, and we've got some time. It's usually plenty of time to get those things that have to get done before closing completed. So just to review, first question, are you ready to fail? Can you handle failure? The second question, do you have 90 days to really attribute to learning just the basics about this business to a point where you can get something under a contract and actually do a deal? Now, that first deal could be $5,000 to you, $50,000 to you. It just depends on what game you want to play. The bigger the dollar amount of the piece of property that you're buying, as far as the value, the bigger dollar amount you may make in whether it's commission or assignment fees or net profits, whatever you want to call it. The last question that you need to think about is, are you learning while you're earning? That's, I think, something that a lot of people don't really pay a whole lot of attention to, and that is, making sure that as you're going forward and as you're progressing, you're continuing to gain advice. You're continuing to network. You're continuing to read. You're continuing the learning process. This is not a business that is new to the planet. And there's a lot of people out there going to say, oh, I've got this system, or oh, I've got that system, or oh, and I believe in systems, and I believe there's niches, and I believe there's, but lease purchasing was called something else 30 years ago. No money down properties, that's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. Buying houses all cash for cheap, using creative financing, or using private investment money and all that. That's been going on forever, guys. It's nothing new. But it's such a wide variety of options. I think it's going to take you 90 days just to figure out what you like. People are generally attracted to what's going to take the least amount of time and make me the most money quickly. But again, the thing that you have to understand is your strategy is, one of the things that you're going to figure out as you go into this. My personal opinion, my personal advice is, pick a strategy and see if you like it. Don't pick a strategy and stay in that strategy if you don't like it. Being a former athlete, I can tell you, if I don't, and a former coach, I've been a coach for such a long time as well after being an athlete. If you don't put people in a situation that they like, or that they find that they can be successful, they're just not going to continue to do it. And I think that's why a lot of people, leave the real estate game, is the fact that they get into it, they have an aspiration, they don't see that success that they saw in the infomercial at 2 o'clock in the morning, where you're just going to make money hand over fist because some guy in Texas did. One guy out of 4,000 people got a deal in 2 weeks and cashed a $47,000 check. Because you're not that person, you think you're not successful, and and so you just got to really understand that there are multiple strategies. It all depends on what your desired outcome is. I think that's important, right? If you're looking for monthly cash flow, there's a strategy for that. If you're a deal person and you're just looking to spin deals, there's a strategy for that. If you're a person who likes and thoroughly enjoys relationship building and just kind of managing a team, there's a strategy for that. If you're a person that wants to control as many properties with the least amount of money out of pocket, with no liability, limited liability on actually purchasing that property, but you want to control it, there's a strategy for that. But you don't know what you don't know. And so, unlike a lot of real estate investing gurus that are out there, and I appreciate the gurus. I think they're excellent. They've mastered their version. But the reason that I am so passionate about starting this podcast is the fact that anybody who tells you there's one way to do something is just not telling the truth. Now, they may have, in their experience, and this comes back to my coaching days, guys, it wasn't what I said, it's how I said it. And if I had 20 players on a team, we had one common goal, but the common goal, had to be achieved creatively by, instructing each player, giving each player different direction to get to that common goal. Some people like to be pushed. Some people like to be, pulled. Some people need to, be reinforced. There's just a lot of different things that need to happen for different people. So, anybody says, well, it's just direct mail. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. Look, it's what your personality can maintain. The world is ever changing. Technology is ever changing. And so, to say that there's one way to do something or there's only one best strategy, pick a strategy and I can find in 5 seconds, and you can too, online, somebody that's kicking ass and taking names in that industry and will tell the other people in other industries that they can't believe that they're doing that other stuff because the stuff that they do works so well. And that's where gurus, to me, sometimes are just a little bit full of themselves. There are tremendous gurus. I've been mentored by them. I follow them. There are some guys that are just really, really awesome guys and gals that have built tremendously successful companies. But again, I think, to sit here and say that there's one specific way to be an investor, be a realtor, be involved in real estate is beyond nonsense, because if you open up any real estate, book by the state that you live in, an instructional book that they actually give out in real estate class, just start going through the chapters. You will be blown away by the number of different things and different strategies you can use to buy properties, sell properties. This isn't common knowledge. Control property. There's just a bazillion things you can do. So again, just kind of reviewing these 3 questions. Number 1, are you ready to fail? Are you okay with failure? Because you're going to fail. I don't care if you hire a mentor. The mentor's not going to do the work for you. And just side note, hiring a mentor, guys, the going rate out there for good mentorship, and I mean when I'm talking about mentorship that's accountable to you, that you can pick up the phone and actually talk to that person, is anywhere, in today's world, anywhere from $3,000 to $12,000. And the $3,000 people are probably not going to be very available. Some of that is, some people are flexible. They'll let you pay over time. And some people are not. Some people want all that money up front. In addition to that, they will actually put you to work. It's a very important thing to talk about. They actually put you to work. And you might say to yourself, well, how do they put you to work? Well, they'll say, hey, join my mentorship program for X amount of dollars. I have all these templates and all these books and all these CDs and all this stuff that I'm going to show you and train you on. And then in exchange for that, I'm also going to, in addition to that, I'm going to send you a bunch of leads. And I want you to call those leads and let's go ahead and get those deals going. But I'm going to take 50% of your income or whatever you net on this deal. So, when you think about that, if you're paying $6,000-8,000 just to get in the door, you are going to get some leads, which, no business can survive without leads. So leads are important. You are going to get the hands-on training if your mentor's good. But, if you do your first deal and it's a $10,000 payday and you're just, tickled pink, and let's say you do it within your first 90 days, that person may actually get, that mentor may actually get $5,000 of that deal. And again, 5 out of 10 is still pretty good. 50% of a deal that somebody held your hand on is pretty good. But, when it comes into the next 2 or 3 deals or 4 deals or 5 deals, I saw a mentor, he gets, percentage of the first, 10 deals. So when you add all that stuff up, you may end up paying a mentor $80,000, depending on the size of your deal. Now, again, it's good revenue. If you're giving him $80,000, you might be giving, putting $60,000 in your pocket or $70,000 in your pocket. But at the end of the day, you need to calculate all that. You need to figure that cost in to your overall analysis of hiring a mentor. And my personal belief that if a mentor is going to bring you on and not be personally accountable to you, it's not worth it. The other strategy you can use when looking at a mentor, and we'll talk about this further in some other podcasts, but the other strategy you can use is you can actually use current investors and just say, look, teach me the business. Let me take a part of the business you don't like. Let me resurrect some old dead leads. Let me do some things that add value so I can earn some income, and we'll split the deal. But in exchange for that, I just want you to coach me. I just want you to nurture me and through this process. And you'll have guys that will do that and gals that will do that, for you and with you, because they know that their business is growing. They don't have time to keep up with all the leads. They interviewed you, they like you, they want to work with you, and next thing you know, you're off and running. So very, very important, so that you understand that there are many ways to get a mentor. But none of that stuff matters, guys. None of it matters unless you can qualify yourself in those 3 questions. Are you ready to fail? Do you have at least 90 days to go without closing a deal? Are you comfortable with that? And again, there are overachievers listening to this. There are underachievers listening to this. And there's regular average Joes and Sallys listening to this. So, I don't want to get somebody calling me or emailing me saying, Coach, hey, man, you said that this was going to be, Mr. Real Estate Jock, you said this was going to be a 90-day process, man. I got my first check in 30 days. And I did too. So it's not like it's impossible. But the general public, the general rule of thumb is, I like to set I like to over anticipate my issues, my problems, so that I'm built up. That's the way my mind works. Is that I'm gonna give it its due time and its due process, so that it can kind of run through and we can get through the first 90 days. If I get a couple deals, I hope you guys get deals every week, first week in the business. But generally speaking, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So do not believe the hype that it's no work, it's easy, because it's not. Going back to my analogy earlier, if you ask 10 people, 8 of them are going to say, yes, I want to do real estate. Why are they doing it? If it was that easy to just make $100,000 from a beach, why aren't more people doing it? Because, just common sense would tell you that it isn't that easy. The last question, are you willing to learn while you earn? And that goes back to the mentorship, reading books, gaining access on YouTube, podcasts like these. There's so many, information now is just on every single platform known to man. There's absolutely no reason to ever have no knowledge about anything, because it's so easy now. It's so easy, virtually or in person, to gain information from some of the best people at any field in the world. Can be right on your phone. Can be pumped right into your ears. But you have to continue learning. You have to continue learning while you're earning. So as we close down the show, guys, really, what is my point here? My point is that, as you're thinking about potentially getting into real estate investing or becoming a realtor or whatever the case might be in regards to real estate, the bottom line is you're going to have to roll your sleeves up a little bit and learn the business. When I work with any students or I work with any people that I'm mentoring through any business, I always say, the first thing you got to do is learn the business. You got to learn it. And how do you learn it? You learn it by making some mistakes. You learn it by doing some deals. You learn it by being around some really smart people. But just understand that learning phase is going to hurt. It's like losing weight. It's like building muscle mass. It's going to hurt before we get, to a point where it feels good and now it's kind of running. But, if you're learning and earning at the same time, it's always a good thing. So I think at that point, we're just going to go ahead and wrap up the show. As always, guys, if you're looking for some coaching, if you're looking for some development, I'm always available here to you. I want you guys to feel comfortable knowing that I can answer some questions. If I don't know the answer, I can generally, usually point you in a direction that some people that might have 10 or 15 years more experience than I do can help you get the answer. I'm not looking to get paid for, basic questions, but I am looking to engage, and I love hearing about people's stories. about how they got into real estate and why they're motivated to get into real estate. But really the goal and purpose of this show, and we're so excited to be launching this here, episode 1, is to bring what has been, knowledge that's been around for 250 years in this country to the common people that are actually just looking to gain an exit strategy or a purchase strategy, or do this as a business, whether part-time or full-time. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and sign out. This is the Real Estate Jock, aka DJ Santiago. And remember, it's not that complicated. It's just real estate. Thank you so much for joining the show.